there, this is Nick, and this is this week's quick teaching tip with Nick, all about Webb's and Bloom taxonomy. Norman Webb in 1997 developed a way to categorize activities according to the level of complexity in thinking. These are known as Webb's depth of knowledge. Depth of knowledge essentially offers a common language to understanding rigor or cognitive design in the assessments, curricular units, lessons, and tasks that we create. Now, there are 4 levels of depth of knowledge, and each level increases and grows in cognitive complexity or demand. Now, what Webb's is not is it should not be confused with difficulty. Difficulty, remember, varies from person to person. Webb's depth of knowledge focuses on the kind of thinking required for the task, and it grows by levels. So let's talk about these levels. Now, the goal of Webb's depth of knowledge is to establish the context, the scenario, the setting, or the situation in which students express the depth and extent of their learning. So as you can see here, we have depth of knowledge 1 all the way up to level 4. Depth of knowledge 1 is recall and production. That's where you recall facts or the definition of the procedure. DoK 2, skills and concepts, where you compare and give some basic reasoning. DoK 3, strategic thinking. This is where you plan complex reasoning and you support your reasoning with justification and evidence. And then lastly, DoK 4 is that extended thinking. This is where you synthesize and put together all of the information and you interpret data to solve a problem. Now, you can use Webb's depth of knowledge in K through 12. Regardless of the child or the student, it doesn't matter. They have levels of learning that they can do to create productive struggle and learning for each student. And you want to use it during assessments and also during learning target activities. Now, this is just a breakdown of each level once again. Remember, level 1, recall and production. Level 2, skill and concept. Level 3, strategic thinking. And level 4, extending reasoning. When you're developing your lessons and your learning activities, you need to decide which depth of knowledge would be best to extend the thinking and the rigor for the students. It could be where you want them just to do a level 1, recall and reproduce, recall a fact, definition, term, or it could be where you want them to apply skills and concepts. It could be where then once they know the skills and can recall and reproduce, that's then where you want to give them an opportunity to do strategic thinking, where they demonstrate sound reasoning with evidence and justification. Or you could have them do extended reasoning, where they integrate knowledge from multiple sources, making real-world connections in unique and creative ways, i.e. level 4. Now, depending on your content area, Webb's depth of knowledge can actually change. As you can see here in this particular chart, I have divided up the depth of knowledge based on the major content areas: English, language arts, social studies, math, and science. Let's take a look at the English. So in the level 1, which is just the recall and reproduce, you're using those simple skills, reciting facts, identifying the stages of plot. The reading doesn't require analysis, focuses on the basic comprehension. So this could be that first read for you where you are referencing detail, finding word meanings, recalling from the text, understanding words and phrases. Depth of knowledge 2 in ELA is where you begin to engage beyond the recall. So it's requiring both comprehension and processing. So now you're requiring students to summarize, interpret, infer, classify, organize, collect, and compare. So this is where you begin to make your inferences, where you begin to summarize, where you begin to use context clues. Depth of knowledge 3 in the ELA classroom is where you want them to go beyond the text. So they begin to explain, generalize, and connect ideas. This is where they begin to support their thinking with evidence from the text. They can begin to identify themes, organize characters, apply their prior knowledge. This is where they might determine the author's purpose and then identify the choices and the reasons the authors make. And then depth of knowledge 4 is that higher order thinking, that extended thinking. So you begin to have them maybe develop an hypothesis, I illustrate the common themes in a text and then basically research how that theme developed, where you may have them analyze information, examine different multiple perspectives, where they could read Beowulf and then read the graphic novel, and then they have to compare and contrast the different versions, what's emphasized and what's missing. So that is just a DoK analysis from English. As you can see, I have one for social studies, mathematics, and science, and I've included this presentation in the description link below so you can go back and look at it for yourself. Now let's switch gears to Bloom's and his taxonomy. Everybody knows about Bloom's. It's created by Benjamin Bloom in the 1940s. In 2001, it was revised by his student, Lauren Anderson. And then Bloom, we have Bloom's Revised Taxonomy. Bloom's is an instructional theory that categorizes levels of learning, and each level has a list of action verbs, and each level builds on one another, requiring a higher level thinking and then more difficult learning activities as the lesson goes forth. Now, you want to use Bloom's activity to write your learning outcomes, and you want to use Bloom's levels to structure course content, and then lastly, use Bloom's to assess and measure students. Once again, this can be done K through 12. So let's talk about the 6 levels of Bloom's taxonomy. Level 1, remembering. Can the learner recall the information? So this is where you may define, duplicate, list, memorize, recall. Level 2, understanding. Can the learner explain the ideas or concepts? So can they describe the math formula? Can they describe the steps to the Pythagorean theorem? Can they describe the steps that led to the Civil War? Level 3 is applying. Can the learner use information in a new way? So can they demonstrate, illustrate, interpret the author's choices, or interpret the decision that the character made, interpret the decision of the political party, or interpret the formula the mathematician decided to use. Level 4 is analyze. Can the learner distinguish between different parts? Can they compare, contrast, criticize, discriminate, distinguish, examine, experiment, question, or test? Level 5, can the learner justify or stand? This is where the learner states an opinion or point of view and then defends it with evidence. And then lastly, create. Can the learner create a new product or a new point of view? Can they design, construct, formulate, or write? So that is Bloom's levels of taxonomy. Now, as you can see, there's different levels, of course, and then based on the learning activity that you have, you may need to maybe start low or start high. You may want to go back and do that. So, Bloom's Revised and Webb's Taxonomy. This was just a quick video, give you an understanding of those 2 tools we use to lesson plan. Have a good day.